They have stuck the impeller down here, like almost behind the alternator, underneath all of these pipes, so it's absolutely impossible. If I didn't have this ratcheting tool from Klein, I'm not sure how I ever would have gotten that off. Okay, it's coming out. I'm using the handle of my channel lock pliers as a crowbar to lever that thing out. So, and we're just going to pretend that I didn't try to lasso it and pull it out with a rope. That never happened. Okay. We are up to our necks in refit projects right now. It seems that every day we need a different tool, and that's forced us to think through what we actually need to have on board in order to fix our own boat. Every cruising boat needs tools on board. When you're out on the water, you don't get to pick where you break down, and depending on where it is, you might not be able to run and get the tool you need, or you might be completely isolated in the middle of the water or someplace remote. You either fix it yourself or deal with the consequences of not having it. Even if you can afford to have work done professionally, you still need to have some tools to fix problems yourself. But I also didn't want a giant tool bag filled with chaos. A boat gets disorganized very easily, even when it's on the dry.
I know it looks like a mess here, but I promise we cleaned up one project to make space for another project.
If you don't inflict order on it, it will inflict chaos on you. So I created a system of toolkits. Each kit solves a different category of problems. I didn't want one giant tool bag I have to dig through. I want to know where the tool I need is so that I can grab the right kit and get to work. So this is the kit that you hope you don't have to grab, but when you do, it's suddenly the most important one on the boat. This is my damage control kit. Water is always trying to find its way onto a boat. There's always water in this area. And it's been driving me nuts. I couldn't figure out why. I thought maybe I had a leak from one of my water tanks because it's down there. But no, I found you. Even small leaks that won't sink you can rot your deck or slowly destroy your wiring. It's coming from up there. Everything in this kit is designed for the purpose of stopping water leaks in slow or large quantities. I have a collision mat, which is basically a rubberized piece of canvas with ropes that you would use to walk it to cover a breach from the outside of the hull, and the water pressure will suck it in and slow down the leak while you patch it from the inside. Then I have one of these large squishy STA plugs, a couple of the mini ones as well. I have wooden bungs in multiple sizes, a caulk gun, sealant, rescue tape, Gorilla tape, and a few rings of toilet bowl wax. So this stuff is very sticky and very waterproof. So you can use that to slow down an annoying leak and it'll stay put until you get back to shore and can do a permanent fix. Hammer for pounding in bungs, caulk gun for the adhesive, pry bar for gaining access, hacksaw for cutting damaged hose, and I also have a screwdriver for tightening or loosening hose clamps. Up next is my mechanical kit, so anything mechanical or engine specific goes in here. Transfer pump, oil filter wrench, sockets, Allen keys, drills, bits, sockets, impact set, picks. If you've worked on your car or your house, you already know having the right tool can make the difference between an easy job and one that's completely impossible. Okay, so I am trying to change the impeller, and I finally got the face off of my water pump. They have stuck the impeller down here, like almost behind the alternator, underneath all of these pipes, so it's absolutely impossible. if I didn't have this ratcheting tool from Klein, I'm not sure how I ever would have gotten that off. And I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to change an impeller without disconnecting the cords, the hoses I did either. So now I'm trying to get the impeller out with the channel lock pliers because I don't have an impeller removal tool. I'm not sure how that's going to work. It's barely budging and I don't have a lot of leverage. But so it is time to bring out the big guns. So I borrowed this impeller removal tool from our friend Paul at the boatyard. He helped us winterize the boat last fall. And I'm really hoping that I have space to fit this in there and that it works because the channel lock pliers are not doing the job. I'll give that tool another try and then switch to needle nose pliers if that doesn't work. I honestly don't know why they ran these water pipes instead of just running hose. I wonder if I should replace it with hose runs, but don't tear down a fence if you don't know why it was there. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay, so I took the central hub off this tool and I got the rest of it in, and now I'm trying to pull it out with brute force. So let's see how that works. I'm not sure if this is adapt and overcome or desperate times call for desperate measures, but I tied a bowline and put the bitter end through the cross piece on the impeller remover. Now I'm going to loop it around the engine mount and try to get some leverage and pull it off that way. Oh my gosh. Okay, it's coming out. I'm using the handle of my channel lock pliers as a crowbar to lever that thing out. So, and we're just going to pretend that I didn't try to lasso it and pull it out with a rope. That never happened. Okay. I have just enough of it out to try to wrap a cable tie around and compress those vanes a little bit. It took me 3 days to pull my impeller because I didn't have the right tool. Fortunately, I was able to borrow the tool I needed. But depending where you're cruising, that might not be an option, and I could have been out of luck. The impeller is still stuck halfway in, so I sprayed the hub with some penetrating oil, and then I went to the hardware store and got some silicone spray. So I'm going to blast that in there and see if I can work it out. This is ridiculous. And finally, there it is. Silicone spray and a lot of brute force and finagling finally did the trick. And it only took me 8 different tools to get that impeller out. Electrical problems aren't just a comfort issue. Depending on your electrical problem, you could lose your comms, your nav system, your pumps, or even your engine. In a best case scenario. Worst case, you could burn your boat down to the water line. That's why I try to carry everything that I need to diagnose and hopefully fix whatever electrical issue I run into. Checking my forward battery bank, which powers the thrusters. 11.78, which is not good. My electrical kit is in 2 parts. In the first bag, I keep all my actual tools. I have my diagnostic tools, including a multimeter, a clamp meter, and a GFCI outlet tester. And in this other red pouch, I keep all of my hand tools: screwdrivers, wire stripper, crimper, lineman's pliers, needle nose pliers. In this side pouch, I have a battery terminal cleaner, a utility knife, and no-touch voltage tester for the AC side, which also has an infrared thermometer on it. So I can use that to see if any wires are getting too hot. If you're only going to buy one of these tools, I would probably recommend the clamp meter because it also has a multimeter function. I actually bought the multimeter first and then realized the clamp meter would be really good to have because I can see the current flow in a connected wire. But if you're only have budget or space for one, probably the clamp meter is the smart buy. Then in my other bag are all of my expendable products. So I have my dielectric grease, 3M tape, connectors, terminals, shrink wrap, extra cable, all of that kind of thing. I also have glow-in-the-dark nylon fishing tape, which is really really a lifesaver if you need to run new wires on your boat. So I have gone and torn my pedestal open for a couple of reasons. First off, I wanted to disconnect these cockpit speakers which had been installed in the side because, as you can see, those are not watertight, so that is a flooding risk. And then I also just wanted to take a look at the wiring, inspect it, make sure there were not going to be any surprises down the road. And lastly, I wanted to trace this transducer wire that feeds into my old Garmin GPS because it's not been reading depth correctly, and I wanted to figure out which transducer it was going to because there are a couple abandoned ones in the hull, which annoys me more than is reasonable, but that's neither here nor there. So good news, I figured out which transducer is connected to this GPS, so I can run a line the same place, replace that unit. And then right here is where the linkage for my throttle, and then up here is my hydraulic system and or the hydraulic connection for the steering system. So that looks like it's in great shape actually, so that's really good news. And then I will do a more thorough audit on the rest of this wiring later, look at a way to seal up this opening that all of those are coming through so that it's as watertight as I can make it. And then I'm going to need to create new backing plates or do something watertight for these openings where the old speakers were in. So I do like the electrical access. Maybe I'll put some kind of a metal plate with a gasket or something. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do about all this yet. Power tools can make boat tasks so much easier and faster. My wife thinks that I just want everything that Milwaukee sells, but that's not true. I do want everything Milwaukee sells. I have an impact driver, a drill, because those came as a set, and then I also have my angle grinder, which is also my emergency rig cutting kit. Those power tools live in a Milwaukee Packout, which I actually selected because I can take a mounting plate and there's just enough space in the engine room that I can screw it down to the floor in the back and put it there. I'll store the batteries separately to keep them away from the heat, oil, diesel, all of that stuff. Otherwise, I don't know where I would find room for those tools. This kit is very much a work in progress, but this is the sail repair and rigging kit. So I have some brand new sail ties, an extra batten, I think, that was on the boat already, some zip ties, a splicing fid, whipping twine, a chafing kit, a little roll of Dacron, sail tape, polyester thread, sailing palm, and stitching needle. My grab bag is where I keep all of my most frequently used tools. I have a couple screwdrivers, a few sockets, a strap wrench, my moisture meter, duct tape, a telescoping mirror, channel lock pliers, locking pliers, my tape measure, and a cheap digital caliper. And finally, this last set is carpentry / demolition. So this is my least used set so far, but I have some cheap chisels, a punch set, a rotary tool, some files, a coping saw. You don't just need tools though, you also need an adequate supply of spares. I'm doing an inventory of all of the spares that were on board when we bought the boat. So here we have all of these spare components for The autopilot, every component here is covered enough basically to rebuild the autopilot 3 or 4 times if they were all in working order. Now, caveat to that, some of them have notes on them saying things like questionable or tested on standby but didn't work with the remote. And then some of them have the wrong kind of connector, so I would have to rewire those before I use them. But what I've done here is in this bag I've put together one complete set of autopilot spares that should be good to go. And this will be my rapid repair kit that I can, parts that I can install underway. And then in this Ziploc bag, I have all of the other random components to store or work on later. Then as far as the engine, I have a really solid baseline of spares here. So I have a couple belts, a few filters. I actually have an entire spare alternator, as well as this oil sending unit and 2 spare transmission coolers. So really solid baseline there. I didn't see a spare impeller or any first stage fuel filters, so I'll be adding that, but really happy with this baseline for now. So getting this inventoried and then stored away so that we have everything accessible and know where it is when we're out on the water. All right, so then up next, we have this spare prop, so that's awesome. It looks pretty good. Definitely do in a pinch. There's also spare props for the bow thrusters, so they are not new. Those are definitely the ones that came off last time they were changed out, but that means that if one got damaged or destroyed, I could change it out without having to order in new parts in a pinch. And then I have this whole mess of different hoses, bilge hose, engine hoses that I have to go through an inventory. Some of these pieces are quite short. There are pieces shorter than this in there, just a few inches. So I just need to organize it, inventory it, and figure out what's useful and what is just making things more complicated. So I'm gonna take measurements and jot down everything that I have. So like some of this looks like really good stuff. This is SAE J1527, US Coast Guard type B2. So I know those are Coast Guard or ABYC codes for hose appropriate for something, but I do not have all the codes memorized. So that's why I need to inventory this so that I know what I have on board, what I can fix, and what's the appropriate spare, and then figure out a place to store it all. This was all in the lockers underneath the double bed in the aft cabin. So I have to figure out where it's going to go. That may end up being the best place for it, but there are reasons that I don't like it. For one thing, it eats up a lot of storage, which with just unorganized chaos. For another thing, there are important hoses that run through that same section, from the bilge pumps, from the engine exhaust, the steering system also lives under there, as well as the rudder stock for the emergency tiller. So having all of that in there really gets in the way and makes it difficult to figure out which is an important hose that's actually connected to something and which is just a spare. So I'd like to find a better place for that. All right, so this is Tony, and he has lent me a couple sawhorses, so I'm gonna put a piece of plywood over that and use it as a workbench when I'm working on the hull, so I don't have to have my stuff on the ground anymore. So that's really helpful. And he has a channel too, John.
Yeah, SV Excalibur.
SV Excalibur.
Bad, old, and ugly.
All right, so I'll put the link in the description, and check out his videos.
Cool deal. All right, let me know if you need anything else. But
My goal is to carry everything I need to make sure that breakdowns while cruising are an inconvenience, not a disaster. It's still a work in progress, and I'm sure there are other things that I'm missing, This could definitely be simplified, but that's what we have on board.